I thought I was overreacting. Until I heard her laugh behind our bedroom door. Scene 1. There are things we hold in for so long that when we finally decide to say them out loud, it feels like we're betraying ourselves. I'm still embarrassed. Embarrassed that I was the last one to know. Embarrassed that I defended her when someone said, "That maid is a little too friendly with your husband." Embarrassed that I slept next to him for months after everything started, not realizing that the lavender smell on my pillow wasn't from my soap. If you're reading this, it's because you've been through something like this, or you're going through it now. Or maybe you're just curious to see how far someone can go pretending they don't see what's right in front of them. I pretended really well. Pretended I didn't see the looks. Pretended I didn't hear the quiet laughs when I walked out of the room. Pretended I believed him when he said, "You're being paranoid, babe." Because, see, nobody wants to believe they're being replaced inside their own home. I'm here now, sitting in this empty room with every step echoing, trying to make sense of everything that happened. The house isn't mine anymore. Or better, it's still under my name, but I don't live here anymore. I couldn't. Every room turned into a ghost. The kitchen, where I vented to her while she pretended to listen. The couch, where they sat when I wasn't home. The bedroom, where they laughed at me more than once. I know it sounds crazy to talk about this publicly, to expose a wound that's still open like this, unfiltered, but today I understand that silence only protects the ones who did wrong. And I got tired of protecting both of them. So, if you want to know what it's like to find out your whole life was just a well-told lie, stay with me. Because this story isn't just about betrayal. It's about the day I looked in the mirror and finally had the guts to ask, why did it take me so long to choose myself? Scene 2. In the beginning, everything was perfect. Not in that Hallmark movie way, but perfect in the way real life allows. Slow Sunday breakfasts, him coming back from the bakery with a warm bag of bread, me making that strong coffee he loved, the two of us sitting at the small kitchen table without needing to say much. Sometimes the silence between two people says more than any conversation. And back then, our silence was comfortable. We had just moved into the new house. I remember every detail of that day. Moving boxes all over the living room, tape stuck to the floor, the strong smell of fresh paint on the walls I picked thinking about new beginnings. He was sweaty, carrying the last heavy box full of books, and when he finally set it down, he walked over to me slowly, put his hand on the back of my neck, that gesture that always melted me, and said, "This is going to be our fresh start. You hear me? Just you and me." I believed him. God knows I believed every word. I looked into his eyes and saw a promise, saw a future, saw a man who had really chosen me. Today, when I replay that memory, I see what wasn't there too: sincerity. But that afternoon, I was blinded by hope. The house wasn't big, but it was ours. 3 bedrooms, a kitchen that opened into the living room, a small backyard with a jasmine tree the previous owner said bloomed in the summer. I remember thinking I would take care of that jasmine like it was my child, watering it every day, waiting for it to bloom. In the first few months, we lived in that phase where everything still feels magical. He brought me flowers for no reason. I left notes on the bathroom mirror. We cooked together on the weekends, laughing when the cake batter went wrong, dancing barefoot in the kitchen with music playing low on his phone. But slowly, his job started swallowing more hours. At first, it was just meetings that dragged on, then short trips, then full weekends at the office. "Babe, I'm doing this for us," he'd say, kissing my forehead before walking out, "so we can have a better life." And I swallowed it, because believing was easier than questioning. Because questioning meant admitting something was already cracking. That's when Marcia entered our lives. She came by recommendation from a friend of mine, Laura, who swore up and down, "Marcia is a blessing. Trust me. She does everything. She's super sweet. Treats the house like it's her own. You won't regret it." And at first, she really did seem like a blessing. She arrived on a Tuesday morning, on time, with that calm smile that didn't invade, but also didn't hide. Must have been in her early 40s, hair tied in a low bun, hands rough from years of work, but nails clean and neatly kept. "Just call me Marcia," she said when I offered her coffee. "We'll get along fine, you'll see." And we did. Too quickly, honestly. She cleaned the house like she was tending to a temple. Every corner shined, every piece of clothing folded with almost obsessive precision. She cooked like magic, those simple dishes with a taste that felt like childhood, like a mother's arms, like grandma's house. I loved coming home from work and smelling food ready, a house that felt cared for. I loved seeing Daniel's shirts washed and ironed, hanging in the closet, all perfectly aligned. I loved the lavender-scented sheets, that soft perfume she used that, without meaning to, got into everything. She started staying longer than we agreed. At first, it was just to finish dinner. Then, just to see if you need anything else. Then, she was there when I arrived and still there when Daniel came home. And unintentionally, or maybe not, I started treating her like a friend. On the days Daniel came home too late to have dinner with me, she was the one who sat with me, accepted a cup of tea, listened to me vent. I told her about my frustrations at work, about fears I didn't share with anyone, about the silly arguments Daniel and I had over schedules, exhaustion, emotional distance. She stayed quiet, stirring her tea, sometimes just nodding in that motherly way that calmed me. Men are like that, she'd say now and then. Clueless, stuck in their own heads. But he likes you. Anyone can see that. I clung to those words like someone balancing on a tightrope over a cliff. Today, when I remember, I see the poison hidden in every sentence. But back then, I only heard what I wanted to hear. Daniel laughed when I mentioned her. "You treat that woman like she's family," he'd say with that half smile I used to find charming. "She's almost family," I'd answer, not realizing that almost didn't exist anymore. He shrugged, went back to his phone, and the subject ended there. But today, when I replay that scene in my head like a slow-motion movie, I catch things I didn't notice at the time. The way he avoided eye contact when I talked about her. How he never complained about the food she made, but always criticized mine. The weird silence that filled the room when all three of us were together, like there was a conversation happening without words. But back then, I only saw what I wanted to see. A stable life. A husband dedicated to his work. A clean, cozy, welcoming house. And a woman who, little by little, was taking up all the empty spaces I naively left open. Scene 3. The first crack appeared on a totally ordinary Tuesday. There was no dramatic music, no gut feeling. It was just a normal afternoon, with that yellowish late-day light coming through the bedroom window, the heavy silence of an empty house I was already used to. I had come home early from work, exhausted, with that headache you get from boring meetings and freezing AC. I kicked off my shoes at the door, tossed my bag on the couch, and headed straight to the bedroom, wanting nothing more than to change clothes and rest. When I bent down to grab a pair of slippers under the bed, I saw a shine, small, subtle, but there. I reached under, feeling dust stick to my fingers, that fine dust that builds up even when you clean weekly, and pulled it out. It was an earring. Small, cheap metal, a little dented, like it had fallen hard and stayed stuck there for a while. I sat there on the floor, holding the earring between my fingers, staring at it like it was some alien object. My heart started beating differently. It wasn't fear yet, not panic. It was that weird feeling when you sense something doesn't fit, but you can't quite place your finger on it. I recognized the earring. It was Marcia's. I'd seen her wearing it last week while she was cooking lunch. I remembered because she mentioned it was a gift from her niece, and I told her it was pretty. But what was it doing under my bed? Right in the middle. In a spot where she'd never need to reach unless... I stopped the thought before it finished. I stood up slowly, still holding the earring, and walked to the kitchen. Marcia was there, as usual, washing the lunch dishes, hands covered in soap suds, humming a tune I didn't recognize. When she saw me, she smiled. "Hey, sweetheart. You're home early. Everything okay?" I forced a smile back. "Yeah." "Look." I held up the earring. What I found under my bed. She looked. For 1 second, just one, her eyes widened. It was so fast that if I had blinked, I would have missed it, but I saw it. And after that second, she let out a soft, childish little laugh and wiped her hands on the dish towel. "Oh, that earring must have fallen out of my bag when I was cleaning." I stared at her, waiting. "Under the bed?" I asked, trying to keep my tone light, even though my throat tightened. She shrugged, still wearing that calm smile. You know how clumsy I am. Must have fallen without me noticing. That word, clumsy, echoed in my head. Because Marcia wasn't clumsy. She was meticulous. Everything in her house had a place. Every dish washed and dried immediately. Every piece of clothing folded with military precision. So why was she calling herself clumsy out of nowhere? I wanted to believe her. I needed to believe her. Because the alternative was opening a door I wasn't sure I could close again. Okay, I said, handing the earring back. But be careful, okay? You could cut your foot if you step on it. She took the earring, slipped it into her apron pocket, and went back to washing dishes like nothing had happened. But that laugh echoed in my head the rest of the day. Too sharp, too quick, too rehearsed. That night, when Daniel got home, I was still restless. He walked in with his usual tired face, dropped his backpack on the couch, gave me a quick kiss on the forehead, and went straight to the shower. When he came out, hair still wet, smelling like soap, he sat next to me on the sofa and turned on the TV. I waited a bit, trying to find the right way to say it. Babe, something weird happened today. He barely lifted his eyes from the screen. I found one of Marcia's earrings under our bed. Silence. He took a deep breath, the kind people take when they're gathering patience, and finally turned to look at me. So what? His answer caught me off guard. What do you mean, so what? Don't you think it's weird? He let out a short, humorless laugh. Babe, seriously? You're suspicious of the woman over an earring? His tone wasn't curious. It was mocking. It's not suspicion. I just thought it was weird. I tried to explain, feeling my chest tighten. She cleans the whole house. Of course, stuff falls sometimes. But under the bed? Daniel? Right in the middle? He sighed, like I was a stubborn child. She's just overly sweet, that's all. You're being paranoid, you know that. That word hit my chest like a weight. Paranoid. It wasn't the first time he used that word. Every time I questioned something, a schedule that didn't match, a message he deleted too fast, a last-minute trip, he used that word to shut me up. And it worked. Because deep down, I was scared of being paranoid for real. Scared of being the insecure, jealous woman who invents problems out of nothing. Sorry, I whispered, shrinking into the couch. He turned his eyes back to the TV, ending the conversation, but I couldn't turn it off in my head. I stayed there, sitting beside him, his warm body against mine, but feeling a huge distance between us. That night, when we went to bed, he turned his back to me, like he'd been doing for a while. I stared at his back in the dark, listening to his heavy breathing turn into a light snore. And for the first time, instead of snuggling up to him, I stayed stiff at the edge of the bed, body rigid, eyes wide open, thinking. Thinking about the earring, her laugh, the word paranoid, his silence when I asked. It was there, in that bed that felt too big for the space between us, that I started betraying the only person who didn't deserve to be betrayed. Myself. Scene 4. Over the next few days, I tried to convince myself I was overreacting. I spent hours replaying every detail in my head, looking for rational explanations. The earring could have fallen out of her bag. Maybe I really was seeing things, but the body doesn't lie. Every time Marcia arrived, my stomach twisted. Every time Daniel looked away too quickly when I asked about his day, something inside me tightened. I started noticing little things. The way she smiled when he walked in. The way he spent more time in the living room when she was around. The lavender smell stuck to his clothes. The same smell of the house, but way too strong to be a coincidence. That's when I decided to do something I never thought I would. I made a fake doctor's appointment for a Thursday afternoon. I told Daniel that morning, real casual. Babe, I'll be back late today, okay? He barely looked at me. Okay, we can order takeout if anything. Marcia was in the kitchen washing the breakfast dishes. She looked up for a second when I said it, but didn't say a word. I left the house as if everything was normal, but instead of going anywhere, I parked my car 3 blocks away and waited, 50 minutes, each one feeling like an eternity. When I came back, I opened the gate quietly, unlocked the door carefully, holding my breath. The house was silent. Nobody in the living room, nobody in the kitchen. But there were signs. The trash I'd left almost full was empty. 2 coffee cups in the sink, still with fresh lipstick marks, her lipstick. The bed in the bedroom slightly messed up, the pillow out of place. My heart was beating so hard I could hear it. It wasn't concrete proof, but it wasn't innocence either. That night, I said without looking at him, the doctor canceled last minute. He froze, just for a second. But I saw it. Oh yeah, that sucks. His voice sounded way too practiced. At least you got to rest a bit, he added, looking back at his phone too quickly. That's when I knew for sure. I didn't need cameras, a caught-in-the-act moment, or a confession. I already knew. I just didn't have the courage to accept it yet. Scene 5. When we don't want to believe something, the mind invents 1,000 excuses. And that's exactly what I did. I went back in time to when everything still made sense. I remembered our first date in a simple cafe, him with that shy smile, saying he hated men who cheated. My dad did that to my mom, he'd said, looking straight into my eyes. And I swore I'd never be like him. I believed him. I remembered the day we moved into the new house, the promises he made while holding my hand. This is our fresh start, babe. Just you and me. I remembered how Marcia arrived right after Eeyore, filling in the empty spaces his job left behind. She listened to my fears, told me I was strong, made me feel less alone. Today, when I revisit those memories, I see what I ignored. The small silences, the quick glances, the way she always stayed a little longer when he was home. The betrayal didn't start all at once. It was built on tiny gestures I forgave before even noticing them. And the more I looked back, the more I understood that the problem wasn't just them. It was me, too, for choosing to believe when everything was screaming at me to doubt. Scene 6. It was on a random afternoon that I came home earlier than usual. A meeting had been canceled last minute. I grabbed my things and just went home without telling anyone. When I got there, the street was quiet. I opened the gate slowly, careful not to make noise. The front door was slightly open, not locked. I walked in. Silence. No TV on. No pot on the stove. Nothing. Then, when I got near the hallway, I heard it. The bedroom door was cracked open, and from there came her voice, low, intimate, whispering something that sliced through my chest like a blade. Promise you'll break up with her this time? Silence. A heavy silence, thick with guilt. My hand got sweaty on the doorknob. I could have opened it. I could have blown everything up right there. But I didn't. I stepped back, then another step, then another. I walked out the same door I came in, without making a sound. But this time, I wasn't confused anymore. I was certain. Scene 7. There are days we mark in our memory not because we chose to, but because the body forces us to. That afternoon got burned into me like it had been tattooed on my skin. It was a Thursday. I remember because Thursday was the day I always had a team meeting, the kind that lasted the whole afternoon. I told Daniel in the morning, like I always did, "Babe, today I'll get home late, okay? Long meeting." He barely lifted his eyes from his phone. "Okay," he said, with that automatic voice of someone who's not really paying attention. Marcia was in the kitchen, stirring something in a pot. When I spoke, she only tilted her head slightly, like someone who heard but didn't need to answer. I left home at 8:30 in the morning, with my heavy bag, built-up exhaustion, and a mental list of everything I needed to solve that day. But at 2 in the afternoon, the meeting got canceled. Last minute. One of the coordinators had a family emergency, and they just sent a message in the group. "Guys, we'll reschedule. You can go home early today." I even felt relieved for a moment. I was finally going to get home while there was still daylight, maybe rest, take a long shower, lie on the couch without rushing. I grabbed my things, walked down to the parking lot, started the car. I thought about texting Daniel, but decided to make it a surprise. Maybe I'd get home and find him working from home. Maybe we could even have lunch together. something we hadn't done in months. Traffic was light. I got home 20 minutes later. When I stopped in front of the gate, something felt off. His car was in the garage. He'd said he'd be at the office all day. But okay, I thought. Maybe he came home early too. I opened the gate slowly, trying not to make noise, still with that dumb idea of surprising him. The street was quiet. Strong sunlight beating down on the asphalt. That dry mid-afternoon heat. No dogs barking, no neighbors outside. I locked my car carefully and walked to the front door. When I put the key into the lock, I realized the door was just pushed shut, not locked. I pushed it open slowly, hearing that soft creak in the hinge I'd already asked Daniel to fix 3 times. I walked in. Silence. No TV on. No pot on the stove. No running water. Nothing. Just that heavy, dense silence that feels like it takes up physical space. I closed the door behind me without making a sound and stood there in the entrance, trying to understand what I was feeling. It was a strange feeling, like I was breaking into my own house. I took a few steps through the living room, everything in place, cushions arranged, curtains half closed, letting in that filtered, golden light, the lavender smell lingering in the air, as always. But something was wrong, not visually, viscerally. My whole body was tense, like it knew something that my head didn't want to admit yet. That's when I heard it. A low sound, muffled, coming from the hallway. I stopped breathing. It was a voice, a woman's voice, whispering. I started walking slowly, on my tiptoes, feeling my heart pounding so hard it felt like it was going to jump out of my mouth. Every step felt like it lasted forever. The voice got clearer as I got closer. It came from the bedroom. My bedroom. The door was slightly open. Soft light spilling through the crack. And then, clear as if she were whispering into my ear, I heard Marcia's voice. Promise that this time you'll break up with her? The world stopped. Not in a metaphorical way. Literally. The air left my lungs all at once. My legs froze in the middle of the hallway. My hand, halfway to the doorknob, stopped midair. Silence. After that sentence, just silence. A heavy silence, loaded, thick with guilt. I didn't need to hear his answer. The silence was already the answer. I stood there, frozen, my hand suspended, listening to my own heartbeat pounding in my ears like a war drum. I heard fabric shifting, a quiet sigh, the soft creak of the bed I had chosen so carefully, made every day, slept in every night. My hand touched the doorknob, cold, smooth. I could have turned it. Could have pushed that door open in one go, stormed in, screamed, broken everything, dragged her by the hair, kicked him out right then and there. I had the right. I had the reason. But I didn't open it. Because deep down, I knew that if I opened that door in that moment, something inside me would break in a way I'd never be able to fix. So I stepped back. 1 step, 2, 3. I walked back through the hallway, crossed the living room like I was floating, left through the front door with my hands shaking so much I barely managed to turn the key in the ignition. I got in, shut the door, and only there, alone inside my car parked in front of my own house. Did I start crying? It wasn't sadness yet. It was anger. Anger at her. For coming into my life pretending to be a friend. Anger at him. For promising he'd never be like his father. Anger at me for believing everything. But in the middle of the tears came a cold clarity. I had no doubts anymore. I didn't need more proof, more signs, more excuses. I knew. And now that I knew, I needed to decide what to do with it. I wiped my face with the back of my hand, started the car, and left. I didn't go home that night. I slept at my sister's place, made up some random excuse, pretended everything was fine. But it wasn't. Because now I had heard the truth with my own ears, and there was no going back. Scene 8. The next day, I woke up with a decision already made. I don't know if it was anger, desperation, or survival instinct, but something inside me had shifted. I wasn't going to accept crumbs of information anymore. I wasn't going to settle for suspicions. I wanted to know everything, every detail, every lie. Not to confront them yet, not at that moment, but to be absolutely sure that when I finally blew everything up, there'd be no room for them to deny, twist, or convince me I was crazy. I spent the morning researching, sitting in the office, door closed, pretending to work while searching online for small hidden security cameras. There were dozens of options, some insanely expensive, others surprisingly cheap. I picked a simple one, small enough to fit between books, continuous recording, remote access from my phone, 2-day delivery. I bought it. When the package arrived in the middle of the following week, I was home alone. Marcia had left to buy ingredients for dinner. Daniel was still at work, or at least that's what he said. I opened the box with trembling hands. The camera was tiny, about the size of a lighter, black, discreet, almost invisible. I read the instructions quickly, downloaded the app on my phone, set everything up in under 15 minutes. I went to the living room, looked around for the perfect spot, the bookshelf, between the books and the picture frames. I wedged the camera between a cookbook I never used and an old wedding photo of us. The irony wasn't lost on me. I adjusted the angle so it caught the whole couch, part of the entrance, and the hallway leading to the bedrooms. I tested it on my phone. Perfect image, clear audio. It was ready. In the following days, I lived on autopilot, woke up, went to work, came home, ate dinner, pretended everything was normal. Daniel kissed my forehead before leaving. Marcia cooked, cleaned, smiled like always. And I pretended I didn't know, pretended I still believed. But inside, every cell in my body was on high alert. At night, when everyone slept, I opened the camera app and watched. At first, nothing. Just normal scenes. Me leaving in the morning, Marcia arriving, her cleaning, cooking, organizing. But on the third day, something happened. I was at work when the notification vibrated on my phone. Motion detected. I looked around to make sure no one was watching me and opened the app. It was live. The camera was recording, and there they were, the two of them, sitting on the couch. She had her legs tucked under her, facing him, smiling in that intimate way I thought was only mine. He was leaning in, hand on her knee, laughing at something she'd said. My stomach flipped. I turned up the volume in my headphones. "You think she suspects?" Marcia's voice, low, almost playful. He shrugged. "She always suspects everything, but she never has the guts to look into it." They laughed, as if it were a joke, as if I were the joke. I closed the app before seeing more, because if I kept watching, I'd walk out of work right then, drive home, and do something I couldn't undo. But I needed more. I needed something undeniable, and that came 2 days later, in a way I never expected. It was mid-afternoon. I was at home, in the kitchen, making coffee. Marcia had left early that day, said she had a dentist appointment. Daniel was at work, or at least he was supposed to be. My phone vibrated on the table. A message notification. I grabbed it without thinking much. It was an audio message, from Marcia's number. Weird. She never sent voice messages. She always preferred texting. I hit play. Her voice filled my ears. Intimate, low, loaded with a tenderness that made me feel sick. "Babe, I told you. She's too fragile to notice anything." The phone almost slipped out of my hand. "I already convinced you to sell the house. The rest is just a matter of time." My heart started racing. "We're gonna pull her out of all this and start our life soon, promise?" In the background, I heard a laugh. His low, complicit, intimate. The audio ended. I stood there, phone in hand, staring at the screen like it was some alien object. Then I understood. She sent the audio to the wrong number. She meant to send it to him and sent it to me. My first reaction was to laugh, not out of humor, out of madness, out of absurdity. Then came the anger. It wasn't just cheating. It was a plan. They didn't just want to keep their little affair going. They wanted me out of the picture. They wanted the house. They wanted my life. They wanted to erase me like I never existed. I listened to the audio again, and again, And again. Every word was a knife. Too fragile to notice. That sentence echoed in my head for hours. Had I been fragile? Or had I just been human enough to never imagine people I trusted could be so cruel? I saved the audio, backed it up, downloaded it to the computer, saved it to the cloud. I wasn't letting that proof disappear. That night, when Daniel came home, I pretended everything was normal. We had dinner together. He talked about his day, about meetings, about stress. I smiled, nodded, pretended to listen. But inside, something had changed. I wasn't the fragile woman they thought they could manipulate anymore. I had proof. I had time. And now, I had a plan. Scene 9. I scheduled a Sunday lunch at my house. I invited everyone, my parents, his parents, my siblings, and of course, I made sure Marcia would be there. Marcia, can you stay and help with lunch on Sunday? I asked, with the calmest voice in the world. She smiled, as always. Of course, sweetheart, always. That sweetheart burned in my throat, but I just smiled back. On Sunday, the house looked like a butter commercial set. Table set, pretty tablecloth, flowers in the center, the smell of good food in the air. Everyone arrived cheerful, chatting, laughing. Daniel played his usual role, attentive husband, easy smile, hand on my waist whenever someone looked. Marcia walked around with trays, getting praised by everyone. You're so lucky to have someone like her, my mom said. I smiled, gripping my water glass so hard my fingers went white. I waited for the right moment. When everyone had served their plates, when conversations were flowing easily, I stood up. Guys, before we continue, I want to show you something. I grabbed the laptop hidden next to the TV. I plugged in the cable, feeling everyone's eyes turning toward me. It's a video from the house, I said, my voice way too calm for what was about to happen. When I hit play, it took a few seconds for people to understand what they were seeing. The living room, the couch, and then the two of them, Daniel walking in, Marcia right behind him, their quiet laughs, their touches, the quick kiss, thinking no one would ever see. The sound of silverware stopped. Someone dropped a spoon on their plate. Nobody was breathing properly. Marcia went pale. Daniel froze, staring at the screen as if he wasn't watching himself. I let the video play for a few more seconds before pausing. This is a lie, Marcia tried saying, her voice cracking. Did you edit this? Daniel tried next, looking at me like I was the villain. I didn't answer. I picked up my phone, connected it to the TV speakers, and hit play on the audio. Marcia's voice filled the entire room. She's too fragile to notice anything. I already convinced you to sell the house. We're gonna pull her out of all this. This time, nobody said anything. The silence was so heavy it felt like it was pressing against the walls. When the audio ended, I looked at every face at the table. My parents, speechless. His parents, shocked. My siblings, anger in their eyes. Last, I looked at the two of them. I've already spoken to a lawyer, I began, and my voice came out steady even though my body was shaking. The house is in my name. You plan to take everything from me, but the ones leaving here with nothing but the clothes on their backs are you two. Daniel opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Marcia tried to walk toward me, saying my name like she still had any right to say it. Don't touch me, I said, in a tone I didn't know I had. That was when everything ended. Not with an apology, not with tears, but with the truth laid bare in front of everyone. Scene 10, after everyone left, after the two of them walked out with their things stuffed into bags in a rush, I was alone. I sat on the living room floor, leaning against the couch that had been the stage for so many lies, and cried. It wasn't pretty crying. It was ugly crying, the kind that comes from deep inside the chest and spills out in messy sobs. I cried for the woman I was before finding out everything, for the innocence I'd never get back, for the marriage I defended until the last second, even when everyone already knew it was dead. But in the middle of the tears came a question that hurt more than anything. Why did I take so long? Why did I ignore the earring under the bed? Why did I let him call me paranoid when my gut was screaming something was wrong? Why did I defend her when someone said, "That maid is a little too friendly"? The truth hurts, but it's simple. I was so scared of losing what I built that I preferred believing a lie rather than facing the truth. In the days that followed, when I looked in the mirror, I saw someone I barely recognized. My face looked thinner, my eyes hollow, my expression tired, and underneath all that, a layer of anger. Not just at them, at myself, for betraying myself before they betrayed me. There were moments when I thought about revenge. I imagined posting everything online, sending the videos to his office, destroying her reputation as a trustworthy woman. Each scenario was tempting, but at the same time, a deep exhaustion came over me. I'd already spent so much energy trying to save something that only existed in my head. Did I really want to waste what was left of my strength tying myself to them through revenge? That's when I understood something important. Revenge wasn't freedom. It was just another way of staying trapped. Scene 11. I chose another path. I kept what needed to be handled in the legal field, made sure the house stayed with me, protected my assets. And beyond that, I stayed quiet. Not because they deserved my silence, but because I deserved peace. The weeks that followed were the strangest of my life. I walked through the house and every room felt haunted by a different ghost. The kitchen, where I vented to her, the couch, where they kissed, the bedroom, where he slept next to me after being with her. Everything had memory. And those memories weighed more than any piece of furniture. That's when I realized that, to start over, I needed to leave that place. Not because they once wanted that, but because now it was my choice. I decided to sell the house. Scene 12. One day, a few months later, I was at the supermarket when I smelled a familiar scent, lavender, the same perfume Marcia used. My whole body tensed. My heart sped up like she was right behind me, ready to invade my life again. I turned fast, ready to face her, to say everything I hadn't said. But it wasn't her. It was just some random woman picking products off a shelf. I took a deep breath, feeling my legs shaky. And in that moment, I understood. The problem wasn't what they had done anymore. It was what all of it was still doing to me. I didn't want to spend the rest of my life reacting to smells, voices, memories. I didn't want them living inside me even after leaving my house. I wanted to breathe without fear. Walk into a place and not look for familiar faces. Sleep without dreaming of cracked doors and whispered promises of betrayal. Then I realized it wasn't enough to take them out of my life. I needed to take them out of me. And that would only happen when I finally forgave myself for believing, for taking so long, for being exactly who I was, someone who loved for real. Scene 13. It was on a Saturday afternoon that I went back to the house for the last time. It was almost empty. Just a few boxes against the wall, echo in every step, afternoon light coming through the open windows. I stood in the middle of the living room, looking around. A lot of things had died there. My marriage, my blind trust, my older version, the one who thought love meant accepting anything just to avoid being alone. But other things were born too. A strength I didn't know I had, a clarity that hurt but saved me, a woman who finally learned to choose herself. I grabbed my phone, opened the conversation with Daniel. There were still old messages there, photos, promises, declarations from a time when I didn't know anything. For a second, I thought about rereading them, but I didn't. I scrolled to the top and hit Delete Conversation. The system asked if I was sure. For the first time in a long time, I was. When the screen went blank, something inside me opened up too. I stood up, took one last walk through the house, turned off the lights, one by one, locked the door slowly, hearing the click of the lock like a final period, dropped the key off at the real estate office, with a steady hand and a light heart, walked out into the street with empty hands, no bags, no suitcases, no weight. The wind hit my face, and for the first time in a long time, it didn't feel cold. It felt like freedom. Ending. A lot of people think the most painful part of betrayal is catching someone in the act. The proof, the confrontation. In my case, it wasn't. The bitterest part was realizing how long it took me to choose myself. Today, if I could talk to someone going through something similar, I'd say, protecting yourself isn't selfish. Trusting your gut isn't dramatic. Blind trust protects no one. It only sets the stage for people who lie better than you love. If one day someone calls you too fragile to notice, remember this story. Fragility isn't believing people. Fragility is abandoning yourself just to keep believing in those who've already proven they don't deserve you. The day I walked away from that house wasn't the day I lost everything. It was the day I finally got myself back. And today, when I look back, I don't see the woman who was betrayed. I see the woman who had the courage to face the truth, break free, and start again. This story doesn't have a happy ending the way movies show it. There's no reconciliation, no happily ever after. But it has something better. It has a woman who learned to love herself more than she loved the lie. And that, to me, is enough of a fresh start.